What does it mean to sit under the world's gaze, knowing one wrong word could unravel a life? The studio lights burned soft and warm, a deceptive glow that bathed the set in an amber haze, as if the air itself could cradle secrets. 2 chairs, upholstered in dove-gray suede, their edges catching the sheen of the overheads, faced each other like chess pieces on a board. A low glass table, polished to a mirror's edge, held nothing but a single chipped porcelain cup, its faint crack a silent witness to the tension about to unfold. Oprah Winfrey settled into her chair, her posture regal yet open, her hands folded lightly over a notepad. The cameras, 3 of them, one wide, one tight on the guest, one angled for her own reactions, whirred softly, their motors a faint hum beneath the studio's pulse. A small audience, no more than 30, sat hushed in tiered seats, their faces half-lit, phones tucked away but itching to capture the moment. The microphone clipped to Oprah's blazer crackled once, a sharp pop that made a producer in the control room flinch. She smiled unfazed, her eyes trained on the woman across from her, Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex, her spine straight, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles paled. "Meghan, thank you for being here," Oprah began, her voice a warm alto, honed by decades of drawing out truths. "It's been a long road. How are you holding up?" Meghan's lips curved, a practiced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm grateful to be here, Oprah. To speak for myself." Her voice was clear, clipped, each word a polished stone. She shifted slightly, her emerald green dress catching the light, and the microphone wire snaked across her lap, whispering against the fabric. The audience leaned forward, a collective rustle of anticipation. Oprah tilted her head, her pen tapping once against her notepad, a small, deliberate tick. She remembered another interview, years ago, with a politician who'd crumbled under her questions. This would be different. Meghan wasn't here to confess, she was here to reclaim. "Let's start with something light," Oprah said, her tone as soft as the studio's glow. "Your work with Archwell, the projects you've poured your heart into, what's been the most rewarding part?" Meghan's smile softened, but her eyes stayed sharp, scanning the room as if mapping exits. "It's the impact," she said. "Building something that lifts people up, that gives them a voice. That's what keeps me going." Her fingers twitched, brushing the edge of her chair, and for a fleeting moment, her gaze dropped to the chipped cup on the table, a crack like a fault line. Oprah nodded, her expression warm but her mind already turning. She'd seen that flicker, that brief unguarded pause. "It's inspiring," she said, "to see you carve out this space. But I'm curious, how do you balance that mission with the weight of public scrutiny? The world's been watching you closely." The question landed like a pebble in still water. Meghan's posture stiffened, her shoulders squaring as if bracing for a blow. "Scrutiny is just noise," she said, her voice steady but edged with steel. "I focus on what's real, my family, my work. The rest is just static." She waved a hand, dismissive, but her fingers lingered in the air, trembling slightly before she clasped them again. A camera zoomed in, catching the faint sheen of sweat on her brow. In the control room, a producer whispered, "Stay on her." The words muffled but audible through a text open mic. Oprah's pen tapped again, a metronome of intent. She leaned forward, her voice still gentle but now carrying a subtle weight. "Static can still hurt though, can it? Especially when it's not just about you, but about your children, your husband. How do you shield them from that?" Meghan's eyes narrowed, just for a second, before her smile returned, tighter now. "You don't shield," she said. "You teach resilience. You show them what it means to stand tall." Her words were crisp, almost rehearsed, but her thumb pressed hard against her wedding ring, a small, unconscious anchor. The audience shifted, a murmur rippling through them like wind over grass. Oprah felt a pang of fatigue, a fleeting memory of her own childhood, dodging scrutiny in a different way. She pushed it aside. "Resilience," she echoed, her tone thoughtful. "That's a powerful word. But let's go back a bit, to the institution you stepped away from. The monarchy. You've spoken about the challenges, the constraints. Some say you walked away from duty. Others say you were pushed. Where's the truth in that? The air thickened. Megan's jaw tightened, a muscle flickering under her skin. The truth? She said, her voice low, almost a challenge. The truth is I chose freedom over a cage. Duty doesn't mean enduring silence. Her words cut through the studio, sharp and deliberate, and the audience inhaled, a collective gasp so soft it barely registered. A camera pulled back, capturing the wide shot, 2 women, 2 chairs, the chipped cup gleaming under the lights. Oprah's eyes held Megan's, unblinking. She'd expected the deflection, the reframing. Now it was time to press. Freedom comes at a cost, though, she said, her voice still calm but now carrying a scalpel's edge. You've spoken about pain, about trauma. But some argue your platform, your privilege, gave you a megaphone others don't have. How do you reconcile that? Megan's lips parted then closed. For a moment, her gaze darted to the side, toward the shadowed edge of the set where a producer stood, arms crossed. Privilege doesn't erase pain, she said finally, her voice quieter, almost raw. It amplifies it. Every move you make is dissected, every word twisted. Visibility isn't power, it's a theft. Her hand brushed the chipped cup, a fleeting touch, and the porcelain clinked softly against the glass table. The audience was still, their faces a mix of awe and unease. A phone screen glowed briefly in the front row, quickly dimmed. Oprah felt the weight of the moment, the tightrope of ethics she walked, truth versus spectacle. She leaned back, her pen stilling. That's a striking way to put it, she said. But let's talk about accountability. You've used that megaphone to call out systems, to name harms. Yet some say you've sidestepped your own role, profiting from the same attention you critique. How do you answer that? Megan's breath caught, a sharp, audible hitch. Her eyes flashed, not with anger but with something deeper, hurt, perhaps, or defiance. Profit? She said, her voice rising slightly, each syllable a blade. I've paid for every inch of this life in ways no one sees. Accountability isn't a one-way street, Oprah. The systems that judge me, they don't look in the mirror. Her fingers curled into her palm, nails biting skin. The studio felt smaller, the air heavier. A camera zoomed in on Megan's hand, the faint crescent marks of her nails. In the control room, a producer muttered, "This is gold." The words barely audible through a headset. Oprah's heart thudded, but her face remained serene, her voice a quiet thunder. And yet, she said, when you speak of mirrors, Megan, do you ever turn that lens on yourself? Not just the systems, but your own choices, how they ripple, how they wound others. Megan's breath itched, a sharp gasp that sliced through the studio's heavy silence. Her hand, still gripping the suede arm of her chair, trembled, the faint crescent marks of her nails etched into her palm. The chipped porcelain cup on the glass table gleamed under the studio lights, its crack a jagged accusation. Oprah sat motionless, her final question. Do you ever turn that lens on yourself? Still ringing in the air like a struck bell. The cameras held their focus, one tight on Megan's face, catching the flicker of her eyes, another wide, framing the 2 women locked in a moment that felt like it could fracture time itself. Megan's lips parted, but no words came. Her chest rose and fell, each breath a small rebellion against the weight of Oprah's words. The audience, 30 faces in the dim-tiered seats, sat frozen, their earlier murmurs replaced by a suffocating stillness. A producer in the control room whispered, "Keep rolling." The words muffled through a headset, but the faint crackle carried to the set. Oprah's pen lay still on her notepad, her hands folded, her gaze steady but not unkind. She'd walked this tightrope before, truth versus spectacle, but this moment felt different, rawer, like a wound exposed to air. You think I don't? Megan said finally, her voice low, almost a growl. You think I haven't spent nights dissecting every choice, every word? Her eyes locked onto Oprah's, blazing with a mix of defiance and something softer, grief, perhaps, or exhaustion. I've looked in that mirror, Oprah. It's the world that refuses to. The audience stirred, a ripple of whispers like leaves in a storm. A camera panned to a woman in the front row, her phone screen glowing as she typed furiously, the light casting shadows on her face. Oprah leaned forward, her voice calm but unyielding. "Then tell us what you see," she said. "Not the world's reflection, yours." Megan's hand released the chair, her fingers flexing as if shaking off chains. She stood, abrupt and fluid, the microphone wire snapping taut with a faint twang. The wide shot caught it all, her emerald dress catching the light, the chipped cup trembling on the table, Oprah's unflinching gaze. "What I see," Megan said, her voice rising, "is someone who survived. Someone who built something from nothing. And I won't apologize for that." She took a step, her heels clicking on the polished floor, and the audience gasped, a sharp collective inhale. "Megan," Oprah said, her tone steady but urgent, "you don't have to apologize. But you do have to answer. When does survival become a shield?" The question landed like a slap. Megan froze mid-step, her back to the cameras, her shoulders rigid. For a moment, the studio was a vacuum, no breath, no sound, only the hum of the lights and the faint whine of a camera motor. Then she turned, her face a mask of controlled fury. "A shield?" she said, her voice cracking on the word. "You think I'm hiding? I've been flayed open for the world to see, Oprah. Every scar, every mistake. And still, they demand more." The control room erupted in hushed chaos. "Get the close-up," a producer hissed, and the camera zoomed in, catching the tremor in Megan's jaw, the glint of unshed tears. Oprah rose now, slow and deliberate, her blazer rustling as she stepped closer. "Then give them truth," she said, her voice soft but piercing. "Not performance. Not deflection. Truth." Megan's laugh was sharp, a blade wrapped in velvet. "Truth? The truth is a luxury I don't have. It's a weapon they'll turn against me." She gestured toward the audience, the cameras, the invisible millions beyond. Her hand shook, and for a fleeting moment, her eyes darted to the chipped cup, a crack she couldn't look away from. The audience was on edge now, some leaning forward, others clutching their seats. A man in the back row whispered to his neighbor, "She's going to walk." The words carried, faint but electric, and a camera swiveled to catch his face, a fleeting cutaway. Oprah took another step, closing the gap. "Maybe," she said, "but you're here now. You chose this chair. So tell me, tell them, what's the one truth you're still holding back?" Megan's face crumpled, just for a second, a flash of vulnerability so raw it silenced the room. Her hand brushed her collar, where a faint scar, a thin white line, peeked out, a remnant of some untold story. Then her expression hardened. "You want my truth?" she said, her voice a whisper that carried like a shout. "My truth is I'm tired. Tired of being the villain, the victim, the symbol. I'm just me." She turned, her heels clicking as she strode toward the edge of the set, the microphone wire trailing like a lifeline snapping. The audience erupted, a cacophony of gasps and murmurs. A camera followed her, the lens trembling as it tracked her exit. In the control room, the producer shouted, "Stay with her!" But Megan was already at the curtain, her silhouette sharp against the backstage shadows. She paused, one hand gripping the fabric, and looked back, not at Oprah, but at the chipped cup, its crack glowing under the lights like a wound she couldn't close. Oprah stood alone on the set, her face unreadable, her hands clasped tightly. The cameras lingered on her, then cut to the audience, their faces a mosaic of shock and awe. The control room was a storm of voices. "Cut to commercial!" "No, keep it live!" The hum of the lights grew louder, a relentless drone, and the chipped cup sat silent, its crack a testament to what had just shattered. In the hours that followed, the world exploded. Social media lit up, hashtags like #MeganWalks and #Oprah vs. Megan trending within minutes. Clips of the interview, her trembling hand, her final words, looped endlessly, dissected by pundits and fans alike. Some called it a meltdown, others a liberation. On X, a post from an anonymous account went viral. "She didn't walk out. She broke free." Another countered, "Privilege tantrum or justified rage? You decide." The numbers climbed, Millions of views, thousands of retweets, a digital storm that mirrored the studio's chaos. Backstage, Megan stood in the dark, her breath steadying as a producer approached, hesitant. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low. She didn't answer, her eyes fixed on a distant point, her fingers brushing the scar beneath her collar. In her mind, she saw the chipped cup, its crack a mirror of her own, flawed, yes, but still holding together. Oprah returned to her dressing room, the weight of the moment settling like dust. She sat, staring at her notepad, the pen still where she'd left it. She'd wanted truth, not spectacle, but the line between them blurred too easily. A knock came at the door, a producer, breathless, holding a tablet. "It's everywhere," he said. "They're calling it historic." Oprah nodded, her face calm but her heart heavy. She'd peeled back the layers, but at what cost? The world would keep talking, keep judging, keep slicing Megan's words into sound bites. But in that studio, for one fleeting moment, two women had faced each other, not as icons, but as humans, raw and unscripted. The chipped cup remained on the table, untouched, its crack a quiet reminder, even broken things could endure.